I've been with my girlfriend Jordan for a little over 2 years. We live together and we have 2 cats. Up until this weekend I genuinely thought everything was perfect in our relationship, which I know is what everyone says in these posts, but I really was thinking that I was going to ask her to marry me sometime in the next year. We don't ever get into arguments. Jordan is very sweet and easygoing and normally we just mesh well on everything. Honestly, if everything in our relationship hadn't been so good up until now I probably would have just broken up with her this weekend. But because things have truly been so perfect, I'm not sure if maybe I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion about what to do because my feelings got hurt. The other person who's important in this story is Jordan's friend Mark. She's known Mark for their whole lives because they both grew up in the same small religious community. Jordan isn't part of that religion anymore. She decided to leave the church when she was I think 19 and moved to the state that we live in now. Mark still is in the religion and apparently takes it really seriously. I'm told he now works for the church back in Jordan's hometown. Also, as far as I know, Mark is the only person from the religious community that Jordan still talks to besides her parents, which I'm mentioning because I now think it could be a red flag. So on Saturday I met Mark for the first time because he was in our city and Jordan wanted us all to have dinner together. At this point I want to say, I will admit that when we were first dating and I found out that Jordan had a best friend who was a guy, I didn't really like it, especially because it seemed like they were on FaceTime with each other a lot. But since it was a childhood friend and they mostly didn't see each other in person, I just trusted Jordan that Mark was only a friend and didn't let it bother me, and eventually I got over it. So when we were going to dinner, I wasn't jealous or suspicious of Mark at all. If anything, I was somewhat excited to finally be meeting him since I've been hearing about him for 2 years. But then the way Jordan and Mark acted at dinner is what convinced me that there's something going on there other than just being best friends. I honestly don't even know how to describe it except to say that I've never seen two people act more obviously like they were in love with each other. They literally would not stop touching each other. They were constantly touching each other's arms and shoulders, and at some points they were actually even holding hands. They completely left me out of the conversation and were laughing about inside jokes, and every time they'd laugh they'd do this thing where they put their foreheads together, or that was when they'd be holding hands. And then also they were just looking at each other in a way that I didn't feel comfortable with at all. It was honestly even worse than the touching. It just wasn't how anyone would look at somebody they're supposedly just friends with. I'm 100% sure that every stranger looking at our table thought that Jordan and Mark were the couple and that I was her brother or something. I felt like a third wheel the whole time, and Jordan didn't even notice how awkward she was making it for me because she was way too focused on Mark and all the attention she was getting from him. And that's really not like Jordan at all. Usually she's a lot more considerate and would notice immediately if I wasn't having a good time or if she was accidentally being rude and excluding someone at the table. So it was genuinely really jarring to be sitting there with her and Mark and basically feeling like I didn't know my girlfriend at all. It was like he turned her into a completely different person who didn't even care that I was alive. So finally, at one point when Jordan got up to go to the bathroom, I just said to Mark, "So are you into my girl or what's going on here?" Mark, "Nothing's going on at all. That ship sailed a long time ago." Me, "What does that mean? Did you guys date at some point?" Mark, "No, we never did. And then when she left the church, we both knew it meant that we were never going to. And we've accepted being in each other's lives as friends. There's nothing else going on at all." Me, "That makes it sound like the only reason you're not together is because she left the church." And all Mark did was shrug. Me, "Well, what if she came back to the church? Would you marry her?" Mark, "Oh, she's not going to do that. You might as well ask what would happen if a bicycle had 6 tires. And so then when Jordan came back to the table, Mark said to her, "Op wants to know if we'd be married if you weren't a godless heathen." Jordan, "Why, did you two call your mom while I was gone?" And then she and Mark both just laughed about it and changed the subject. So because of dinner and the conversation and everything else that I've written about in this post, I really feel like Jordan and Mark are in love with each other and not just best friends like they say, and the only reason they aren't together is because they can't compromise about their religion. I think Jordan thinks that because she's okay with that decision, she expects me to be okay with being her second choice, and in the meantime she's actually secretly wanting to be with Mark. So that makes me think that I should probably obviously just have self-respect and break up with her, because I shouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would rather be with somebody else. But then the problem for me is that our relationship has been so perfect and Jordan has always treated me so well except for this one night. The only time she's ever acted like this was on the one occasion that Mark was around in person. Normally even when she's talking to him all the time she's never made me feel this way. So on the one hand I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't matter what Jordan's feelings are for Mark, as long as he isn't going to be around it doesn't actually seem to affect our relationship. So maybe I just need to cool off and go back to trusting her that they are indeed only friends even if it seems to be true that they have complicated feelings for each other. Update 1. I talked to Jordan on Wednesday night. The TLDR update to the situation is that I didn't break up with her. After we talked about everything I feel like that would be too much of an overreaction for what's actually going on. I do still think I was right to be upset about what I saw happening at dinner on Saturday, and Jordan didn't disagree with me about that, but I think I did jump to the wrong conclusion that it meant that she secretly actually wanted to be with Mark more than she wants to be with me. Now that we've talked it out, I don't think there's a reason to end what's otherwise the best relationship I've ever had, and I'm glad that I didn't just immediately trust my instincts, because there was more going on with the situation that I didn't really understand that Jordan has since told me, and now I do feel like she can be given some grace in this situation, assuming nothing like this ever happens again. So thanks for the advice, especially for everyone who told me to just talk to her before I made a big decision. So when we talked, I decided to take the main piece of advice that I got from everyone and start by telling Jordan that my feelings were hurt by the way she treated me at dinner with Mark, and then see how the conversation went from there. It turned into a very long talk, so I don't want to try to remember exact quotes and get them wrong, but here are the important things. I repeated to Jordan some of what I wrote in the post and said that I felt excluded by her and Mark, especially because they were being overly touchy-feely with each other to the point where it made me uncomfortable. Jordan seemed surprised, like she didn't even notice that she and Mark were touching each other that much, but then she thought about it and said that I was right and apologized. She said that Mark is always really touchy with everybody and not just her, I asked, and so she didn't even think about it, but that she wished I would have said something at the time because she didn't realize they were being that obnoxious. I said that was part of what bothered me, because I thought that normally she would have noticed something like that, but she was acting so different around Mark and not paying any attention to anything else, including how I was feeling, that it was honestly just made me question which one of us she cared about more, or if she cared about him as more than just a friend. Jordan apologized more and said that she could understand why it would look that way to me, but that she loves me and cares more about me than anyone else in the world, and that she didn't mean to act like that or make me feel that way. She said that she was trying to not make Mark feel like a third wheel because of being a single guy out with a couple, but obviously it backfired and just made me feel like the third wheel instead, which wasn't what she wanted to do either. After that, Jordan explained a lot to me about her history with Mark, and basically as she explained it, she said that she fully admits she cares about him as more than just a normal friend, but she says that it's not in a romantic way. She said that's why she always specifically refers to him as her best friend and not just as her friend, and said that she would use the phrase "he's like my brother" if it weren't for the fact that she once had an actual brother, RIP, so she won't use that phrasing for anyone else. According to Jordan, the main thing that happened to make her and Mark so close was that when she was 17 she tried to kill herself, and that was actually when everyone else in the community stopped talking to her, and Mark was the only person who didn't. For the next couple of years until she moved, he was literally her only friend, and she said that he checked on her every single day to make sure she stayed alive, which is also when they got into the habit of talking on the phone so much. And also apparently during this time Mark's parents thought they were dating and made a big deal about how they shouldn't be, and that's why she made that remark during dinner, apparently calling Jordan a godless heathen is something that Mark's mom said. I did tell Jordan that Mark basically said to me that he thought the two of them would be married if she had stayed in the church, and I asked her if she thinks that maybe Mark is in love with her even if she doesn't feel the same way. She said definitely not, and I don't think she was being dishonest. I really don't agree with her, but I think she genuinely believes that Mark isn't into her in any way apart from friendship. Her opinion of the situation is that she also thinks she and Mark would eventually have gotten married if she had never left the church or moved, but from her perspective it would have been more because of peer pressure than anything else, and she doesn't think it would necessarily have been a good thing. She thinks Mark was just being honest about that, and that possibly from his perspective he thinks he and Jordan would have made a good couple, but he's probably thinking that because he's just assuming that in that scenario she'd be the perfect church wife, so there's no reason why they wouldn't be a good couple. But then the big thing that happened at the end of the conversation is that Jordan told me that Mark is coming back through our city on his way home from this trip, and so she was going to invite him to hang out with the two of us again, but she said that if I'm going to be uncomfortable with him around then she won't ask him. A lot of people were saying that if she didn't offer to cut contact with him or to cut down on contact with him, it meant that she valued him over me, so the fact that she brought up on her own that she wouldn't invite him to dinner with us again because I didn't like it seemed like a really good sign to me. Based on everything else that she said, I do understand why she didn't offer to totally stop being friends with him, and I wouldn't expect her to after what she told me about what happened when she was a teenager. So now I'm deciding to take Jordan's word for it that although she and Mark are weirdly close, it's for the reasons that she explained to me and not because she's in love with him. I think the fact that she was immediately apologetic instead of defensive was good, and the way she explained everything did make sense to me. I don't necessarily trust Mark, but I do think I can trust Jordan. But I am going to watch and see if it seems like she's still talking to him as much as she used to, or if anything changes or sounds different. I'm not going to be controlling and tell her that she can't talk to him or that she has to talk to him less, but I want to see if me talking to her about all of this causes her to act any differently at all. I'm kind of thinking she might realize on her own that the way Mark acts towards her actually does seem like he likes her as more than a friend now that I've brought it up, but I don't know. It could be that things just go back to exactly the way they were before, and I won't know if anything has actually changed until the next time Mark is around in person, but I don't think that's something I should keep worrying about before it happens. Update 2. The situation seems pretty resolved now, after Mike and Jordan had an argument over everything and are no longer friends. What happened was that after Jordan told Mark we weren't available to hang out when he came back through our city, he blamed me, saying that he could tell Jordan was only saying no to hanging out because I had a problem with him. Jordan admitted that this was part of the reason and told Mark that she wanted a bit of space from him because she was trying to be respectful of our relationship. Mark got really offended and kept asking Jordan to explain why him being around was disrespectful to our relationship and kept pretending not to understand her answers. And then eventually during the conversation he started trying to guilt Jordan into making time for him and told her that she's become a worse person over the years because the Jordan he knew would never blow him off. That upset Jordan a lot because she took it as Mark saying that she was a bad person since she left the church, and she started crying and she ended up hanging up on him. Jordan and I talked a lot afterwards. I told her that I thought Mark was toxic because anyone else would have been understanding of what she said. Jordan said that a lot of what he said during the conversation reminded her of being in the church. She said that she couldn't explain it except that it was his attitude when he tried to argue with her, but that it made her not really want to talk to him even outside of anything to do with our relationship. Mark texted Jordan the day after asking if she really wasn't going to come see him and if she was going to pick some boyfriend over her only friend after he's been there for her through everything. Jordan texted Mark back explaining her point again and saying that their friendship couldn't be the same anymore as it used to be now that she was with someone and that he should understand that. Mark texted Jordan that he couldn't believe she'd treat her best friend like that. Jordan tried to text Mark saying that a friend wouldn't be guilt-tripping her, but it turned out that he had blocked her number. After that, Jordan was feeling like she'd done something wrong and was too mean to Mark, but she and I talked about it again and she realized that she was right to not want to be friends with Mark if he's going to treat her like S. He owes him loyalty. Jordan then blocked him back, including on all her socials, so that if later he changes his mind and tries to apologize she can ignore him. A couple of weeks went by and while I'll admit I was pretty happy about not hearing from Mark, Jordan was really bummed about how everything ended. She said that although she saw now that Mark isn't a good person to have in her life because of his reaction to her trying to set a boundary, she still felt sad and abandoned, and it was bringing back a lot of the same feelings as when she was a teenager and her other church friends all turned their backs on her. So at this point I asked her if she's ever thought about going to therapy for religious trauma, and she said she'd gone for a few months when she first left the church, but the therapist wasn't really helpful. I suggested that maybe it would be a good idea to try again with a better therapist because it sounds like all this stuff still bothers her a lot, and Jordan agreed with me and decided to make an appointment. Now on to second story. Discovered my husband slept with my niece while I was on a business trip, and now chaos has erupted in our family. This niece is my brother's daughter and she is 23. For more than a year I felt she is looking way too much at my husband, 40, but my mind couldn't accept this and I told myself I am crazy. I know she admires him, she is very vocal about it. I didn't do anything because I never saw anything suspicious on his side. My brother is a loser, to be frank, and a stupid excuse of a father. Drinks, gambles, and usually unemployed. My husband collects him frequently from hospital and pays for the medicine he has for liver. A lot of times when my niece was still a child I took care of her, cooked for her, got her ready for school. Her mother left with someone else and she abandoned her with her father. My husband is the complete opposite of him. He takes care of his appearance, has successful business, 45 employees. She looks up to him and said she learned a lot from him about how a business work. When the line was really crossed was when one day she insisted to iron his suit. He always wears suits and ties and she wanted to prepare it for him. I was very busy with my 7-year-old daughter who had a hard time getting used to the new school and I let it pass. A very stressful period for me. And she helped. I told her I will just order food every day, but she wanted to be useful, so she said. She cooked what he liked to eat, never asked what we want, just what he wants. And 3 days ago I found out he slept with her while I was away on business trip. I let my daughter with them in the house. But he took her to my mother. I actually got an anonymous text, which turned out to be from a friend of hers. I hoped he'd a stupid joke. But I told him I know he slept with her and he started apologizing and explaining that it happened just once, that they had wine and it happened. I don't know what to do now. Another reason why I think he didn't groom her was that this is not the first time she sleeps with a married man. She did it last year too. I had a talk with her back then and she was very proud of what she'd done. She wasn't looking for love, she just fancied the idea to sleep with a man in power. That man was also with high social status and in military. It's her thing. She sees these kind of men as superior and worthy. She never gave any chance to a guy her age and she looked down on them. She is not like a lot of modern young women who want to be independent and strong. She knows she is beautiful and is playing the beauty card. She is extremely feminine to the point that even her voice is always soft and low, like she wants to appear submissive and good girl. She never went clubbing, for example, because good girls don't do that. Doesn't want a driver license because she feels it's masculine to drive a car. Comment from Oop for me as she. Yeah. Typical angry wife at the mistress, call it so. But I helped raise this child. I was a mother figure to her. I didn't feed him, I didn't help him with homework, I didn't get him ready for school. I have an update. My mother tried to talk to her again and Anastasia, my niece, told her that she hates me and she hated me for years. That I have everything and didn't have to work for it, that she was left behind by her mother, was pitied, and even mocked at school, by others because she has a loser drunk father. While I had a perfect life, a perfect career and a perfect husband. I was envied and admired, she was shamed and pitied. I also needed to return home because it will affect me in court if I don't allow my husband to see his daughter. I found a mess in my bedroom. My husband was cleaning it up with my mother. Anastasia threw out all my stuff from the closet and wanted to put hers there. Mother said that my husband needed to grab her hands and immobilize her because she acted crazy. Hit him, and in the end he also hit her to stop her from scratching and kicking my mother, confirmed. She did attack her. My husband called a doctor to give her something to calm her, and this worked. He begs me to forgive him. He was always the arrogant, confident man who was being begged for one thing or another by people around him. I never seen him so ruined. My mother cried and told me this is not the first time she attacks her when angry, but she never did anything about it because the girl suffered enough, and having something like that on her record might hurt her future even more. Also, my brother continues to be a total piece of. And asked my husband if he will give him more money because of this. It almost sounds like he wants her to be a prostitute. Okay, maybe it's too much, but it def goes that way. Update 1. However, after this, in order to respect the rules of this sub that helped me cope so much, I will stick to my own profile with possible updates. I had a talk with my husband. He said he didn't think she was that unstable. Great, so you fucked her because you thought she is stable. How does that help? She wants him. I already blocked her number, but she still texted me from some new one that I blocked too. How we all call her crazy, but it's the crazy who makes sex interesting, and he will come for more. I really cannot believe this is my niece. She said how she deserves him more than I do, that I don't deserve a man like him, that I deserve one like her father. My mother is in a sensitive situation now. She said that the girl was hysterical with both of them, her and my husband. Neither wanted to call the police because that would lead to so many questions about what happened between them. He doesn't want his associates to find out, and my mother, well, it's still her granddaughter and she didn't want to cause her problems. This is why my husband in the end slapped her so bad that it threw her to the floor. But it calmed her down because she got scared and covered her face in fear. He literally told her that if she doesn't get out from the house he will slap her again. It really felt like, I know this from my mother, only physical force or rather the threat of being beaten/slapped by him made her to take a step back. My brother is drinking as nothing matters to him, and even asked my brother if he can give him more money because of this, and in a sick way above it all. Not like because of what you done, more like because you got to FCK my daughter. It's almost like he feels that his daughter sleeping with my husband was a way to get under my husband's skin or show that he is thankful. This is all in my head, no one confirmed me this hypothesis, but these are the vibes I get from him. I even speculated whether my brother knew about what she is doing. You suspected my mother, but I bet she didn't. She is a broken woman because of her son being such a waste of space, but she has always been very open with me about everything, a comment that Oop thinks will justify why she's so angry at her niece. I am not trying to defend him. I just honestly told you from the very beginning I feel more betrayed by her than by him. I feel what I feel. You are confused why I am fixed on her. I am confused why do you want me so much to just ignore her? Yes, I feel more betrayed by her. When he cheated in the past I didn't even care who it was with. My problem was him. But I did so much more for her, my niece, than I did for him. When my daughter was born she was extremely jealous, so I treated her like my own child, even going so far as to throw her a birthday party just so she doesn't feel sad that I did it only for my daughter. She lied to me about being sick. She said her doctor is afraid she has cancer. She even told her colleagues at uni she has cancer. It was all bull. This happened 2 years ago, and my husband told me that he will divorce if I don't put distance between us and her. Another comment from Oop: yes, I hate her, both of them. But I hate them more. I took my daughter to my mother because I needed to leave the hotel and pack everything, and she was there. She came after I left. And started yelling at my mother in front of my daughter that my husband raped her. After sending me tens of messages how great and kinky their sex was. Now he raped her. And she plans to go to police that he raped and slapped her. I just can't. I want to leave the city, but I cannot take my underage girl with me, without his consent. New comments comment about convo with husband. While I was at the hotel I talked with him on the phone and asked for his version of events. I told him that I am willing to believe they had sex just once, but I am not naive enough to believe there was nothing before this. With great difficulty he admitted and showed me texts from her, so I believe that she spent a night in our house while I was away. This happened 2 months ago. She texted him that he father threw her out the house, as the reason she decided to go and live separately, paying rent, because they had an argument and he pushed her into the wall. It was middle of the night and she texted him if she can go and sleep in our house. I read the text messages, all the screenshots were a proof. He picked her up. We have 3 empty rooms, she slept in one of them. This however cannot be proven. He swore nothing happened, but they drank in the kitchen until 4 in the morning and they talked about her father, and she just told him that she wishes her father was more like him. But he didn't think much of it, he said. He took it as an appreciative comment, and after emptied his glass he went to sleep, comment confirming that she's not divorcing. I was accused by some that I am the worst here because instead of protecting her from him when she was a teen I let him her. Where did you even get that from? I will not forgive him. I will not divorce him. Just leave me feel without calling me unhinged for that. Yes, his infidelity now is not my biggest concern right now. I kept this title for the update because it all started with this. I am hurt more by the fact that the girl I loved so much not only wanted my husband, but she also hates me. She hates me from the bottom of her heart, and I didn't even suspect this. She hates my daughter who also adores her. I thought she adores her too. They spent so much time together. My niece was playing with her for hours. And now I found out she is disgusted by me. I don't think you realize how horrible this is, and what a shock. Also to know that my mother hid from me how unstable she is, what she has been talking about me. His infidelity and betray hurts, but you didn't ask me what our relationship is, how close we are, how much he means to me. She meant to me more than him. After that first cheating episode, I think a good part of my love died. But we didn't divorce, we stayed for the child. I know it's not a good idea, but for us it worked somehow. Till loved him but not so much anymore because he hurt me.